By default, we want it all the time, all the money, all the comfort, simplicity, and ease, and all the growth. But there are many periods in time in which we must choose what we really want because aiming for everything will result in us getting none of the things. This week, I'll cover 3 critical examples.
Running a service business can be hard. It is not unusual for business owners in industries like contracting, home repair, auto repair, business-to-business services like janitorial, IT and accounting, and many others to feel overwhelmed by all the priorities facing them at any given time. Between addressing the needs of the customers, managing the employees, figuring out the financials, and getting processes in place, feeling like you're making significant progress on your business journey can be difficult. Welcome to Service Industry Success, hosted by Brian Harding. Each week, Brian will look at real-world strategies for building the business you are dreaming of, while also sharing tactics to get through some of the most frustrating parts of business ownership with a lot more ease. Let's get started.
Sometimes in conversations with clients or other business people, things just come up and I say, hey, that's a great podcast topic. And today, this is just such an example. It didn't come up for anything bad, so there isn't some dreadful story to tell or some happy ending that we're working towards. But I think this topic will be super helpful. One of our favorite things to do as leaders is to overcomplicate simple things and minimize complicated problems. So today we're going to focus on keeping things simple and talk about 3 simple truths. 3 priorities we must sacrifice, each that is very important to most of us. But must be sacrificed in order for us to grow. Almost universally, most of us want to grow and to make progress more than just about anything else. But there's these other things that come up. We also want these other things. But those things have to be pushed aside if we want to grow. We want to grow our company and team. We want to grow our skills and abilities. We want to grow our income, grow our endurance. Lots of kinds of growth. This is not limited to any particular kinds of growth. There's lots of kinds of growth that are involved here. So more on that in a second. First, I'd like to tell you how you can join my new group called Business Tips. This is a place where you can ask any question you have about improving your business, your growth, your team, your processes, or your profitability. This group is for anyone who has a team of employees they lead, not just business owners. We meet 2 times a month on a recorded Zoom call. There's lots of other benefits as well. Just go to joinbusinesstips.com to see what all is included. It's less than $100 a month with no contracts, no commitment. That's joinbusinesstips.com. All right. So first of all, this is not an all-inclusive list that we're going to talk about today. It's 3 simple things. So there's many other things we get to sacrifice as well, but these 3 are 3 that come up regularly in this moment in time, in this part of the macroeconomic cycle, and just kind of where we are. These are 3 things that I end up talking about regularly with people, again, clients and other just business people. The first priority we must sacrifice to grow is saving. So before we jump to super binary land, I don't mean we can't put a single penny aside in our savings account, but here's the main point. You can't save your way to growth. Right now, lots of us want to put money aside. Lots of us are worried about what's going on in the future. I get all that. But we can't have an expectation that we're going to be able to put a significant portion of the proceeds of our income to savings and also somehow grow. Growth takes capital. It takes money to make money. We've heard that since we were 9 years old, probably. Growth takes risk. Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, as brilliant as investors they were, both who put a high priority on minimizing risk, like tremendous amount of priority on minimizing risk. Even those folks had to put money on the line to grow their wealth. They had to spend the money to invest and hope for the returns. That's how it works. But perhaps more importantly, speaking for myself, my brain doesn't work well when I'm trying to satisfy outcomes completely at odds with each other. Meaning, it would be nearly impossible for me to really grow my business with a savings mindset. I don't talk about mindset stuff a lot, but looking back on periods of time where I was really driving the company to grow, the thought of saving money was definitely, I wouldn't even call it an afterthought. It wasn't a thought. Again, that doesn't mean I didn't want to save someday. It just meant there were certain specific periods of time where I had to get through those times, and whatever capital, energy, effort, time, whatever it took to get through that period of time, I knew the rewards later were going to be much better. So it was much better a certain period of time to push through this piece as fast as possible because the rewards I would get monetarily and time and energy and ease and all that kind of stuff would be much greater if I got through this particular point, this era in the company, this part where things were difficult or whatever. And so the idea of like not doing that and say, well, yeah, but I also want to put some money aside. My brain just doesn't work like that. And again, I'm not like super binary. Of course, I'm a fan of people putting money aside in savings. But to really grow, I don't think we can do that where we're really pushing to grow and also reserving to hold back because I think it plays games with our minds. At least it would for me. So, of course, again, it doesn't mean I can't put some money away here and there, but prioritizing saving is a conservative mindset. And there are times where that approach will create a situation where we don't take advantage of fantastic opportunities because we have a conserving, saving approach. And, there's times, back like certain times we took risks in buying pieces of equipment that had we saved that money instead, we wouldn't have. And then there's things that wouldn't have happened after that because we wouldn't have had the piece of equipment we invested in or vehicles or employees. There's tons of times where we could have put money in the bank instead of hiring employees or buying new vehicles or new equipment or whatever. And it would have been way more comfortable, but it wouldn't have been towards the end goal, which was really growth and making progress towards building what we were trying to build. So a thing right now for lots of folks in any period of time, but especially right now, is like, how do I split the money? The money produces, the company produces X number of dollars. We either invest it, we set it aside in savings, either for the company or personally. We pay our taxes, or we get compensated for the work we're putting in. Like that's kind of the buckets, right? I did a whole podcast episode on how that works. But we can't be thinking, well, I would like to be putting 50% of my money into savings and put 50% of my money aside for growth and 50% of the money to go home and buy all kinds of cool stuff. Like it doesn't work that way. We have to make decisions. And if we're trying to grow, you can't save your way to growth. I think that's the thing that really stood out to me when I was having this particular conversation was it's just not possible. You can save along the way, but you're really going to slow things down. And if you really want to grow, saving is not the priority. All right, the next priority we must sacrifice is wishing for someone else to have to bear the burden that is required to grow, or that there be a better time or a right time. You can't wish your way to growth either. It's simple. Without action from me, nothing happens. Like full stop. We must hold ourselves accountable to actions, not intent. Wishing for things to happen, as grand as that is and how fun that is, it doesn't move the needle a whole lot. If I hired a babysitter, a house sitter, a dog sitter, or any other person to take responsibility for something or someone I really relish or really care about, I would care about the outcomes and actions way more than their intent or how they wish things went. Like imagine you hire a house sitter and you're gone for a few days and you come back and, bad things have happened. Are we gonna say, well, what do they want to happen? Are we gonna go, this person made some really bad decisions and did some really terrible things, and boom, now my house is destroyed, or there was a fire or a flood or whatever it was? Would we go, well, yeah, if they didn't want that to happen? I mean, that would be a piece of it for sure, but the real accountability is on the actions and outcomes. And I think we have to do the same thing for ourselves here. We are the caretakers of our business. Therefore, outcomes and actions are what we should assess our performance on, just like the dog sitter, not by what we are hoping will happen. The last thing I want to talk about this week is we must sacrifice comfort, security, and safety. You can't comfortably grow either. We've all heard it said hundreds of times by now. Some of the biggest growth comes when we allow ourselves to be the most vulnerable, or the greatest growth comes through the greatest vulnerability. There's different ways it's said. For me, I can tell you, not only is this true for me, this is true for the leadership team I developed in my own company, and this is absolutely true with people I work with. And it's one of those things that we all know, and then we're super excited when we experience it again because it's like it happened for the first time. I can think of a handful of examples in the last few months where People are very reluctant to try something new because we're not good at it. We don't know it. We suck at it in the beginning. We're trying this new thing. And all of a sudden, like, wow, I had this like huge epiphany. Yeah. But those epiphanies only generally come, in my experience, through putting ourselves in situations where we're vulnerable, to try things new, to put down our guard and not be so jaded or so guarded about protecting our feelings and things like that. This is where the real growth happens. So if we want growth, like the idea of doing it comfortably is ludicrous. It's crazy. There's not one single thing that I help people with now that I was born knowing how to do. I've learned every single thing that I help other people with now through mentorship or mistakes. There are zero exceptions to this. I've sucked at every single thing I teach people to do now. Every single one. And if I would have prioritized staying safe and comfortable, I would still have a mediocre job in a mediocre company, making mediocre money and living a mediocre lifestyle. And what a travesty that would be. And I look at, again, people in my own company or when I was an employee and I had subordinate managers and requiring them to do things that were uncomfortable, but we all knew was the right thing to do, is where easily 90% of the growth came from, maybe 99% of the growth. It's hard to quantify that stuff, but I can't think of examples off the top of my head where somebody had real major growth, but didn't have to try things or experiment or put themselves in a situation where they weren't as comfortable as they would like. It's just not how it happens. And so we have this deep down desire for things to be comfortable and easy and to remain safe but that's not where the growth happens. Growth only comes by way of doing things we know we will suck at and having the courage and self-respect to do them anyway. This is where, this is the situations that have to exist for the real growth to happen. Like we have to be vulnerable. It's not much that honestly, it's not that much different than the first thing we talked about, which is you can't save your way to growth. Like you have to put your money on the line. Like it's risk. And it's kind of the same way with this, being comfortable versus being vulnerable. You have to put yourself out there and you have to put yourself in situations to experience things and try new things. Like again, the saying is silly because it's so cliche, but it's also true. All these things are like riding a bicycle. When you first jump on a bicycle, you're horrible at it. Every one of us. I don't know a single person who jumped on a bicycle the first time and just like sped away with no training wheels or anything. That's not how it works. You got mom or dad or an older sibling or something like that showing you how to do it, and then you got the training wheels, and you do that for a while, and then you take them off, and you fall and skin your knee. Like there's a million skin your knee stories. There's a million bicycle stories because it correlates to everything. All things we do. Reading financials is like riding a bicycle. The first time you do it, you have no idea what you're looking at. And then fast forward after you looked at them 500 times, like you can do it in your sleep. It's the same thing with all the things that lead to growth. Managing people, having a clear process in how we do leadership, a clear process for how we do training and put procedures and processes in place. All these things, we suck at all that stuff in the beginning. And only through mentorship and mistakes do we learn. And that's called gaining experience. That's how it works. We can't expect to have the outcome without going through the process that gives us the experience, which is the skinning the knee part. that's the part we learn. If we didn't skin our knee and it didn't hurt, we fall off our bicycle, we wouldn't stop falling off our bicycle. That's just kind of how it works, right? So something I like to remind myself when I feel like it's not fair or that I shouldn't have to have this particular burden or that I should only have to put myself or hold myself to the standards that other people, the ones that drive me nuts, I should only have to hold myself to the standards they hold themselves to, or that things should be easier, or that it shouldn't take so much failure and hard work, or that I should have enough money to invest for growth and save and also buy all the cool stuff I want. In those moments, I just remind myself, if it was easy, everyone would do it and it wouldn't pay that well. The reason it pays well is because it's hard and people give up. And it requires sacrificing things like saving and building a situation where we feel safe with our money and wishing for things to happen and having comfort while we're getting better. Like if we could do all those things, then everyone would do this. And if everyone did it, it couldn't pay that well. That's not how it works. So In summary, we just have to remember in those times where we think it shouldn't have to be a certain way, we should have more money. Like, you can't save your way to growth. You have to put the risk out there, get the reward. And then later on, you'll have more money to save than you can imagine. But in the beginning and during the parts where you need to really grow, you can't save and grow. You got to prioritize. And, to really grow, you have to not save, then grow, and then save. We can't do both at the same time in all cases. You can't wish your way to growth. It takes action. It takes doing things. Action is a key word there, and you can't comfortably grow. And this is, maybe the one that subconsciously, the other two are more conscious things, that subconsciously, we want to grow, but we also want it to be easy. Shouldn't be this hard. I shouldn't have to have another uncomfortable conversation with my employee, another frustrating conversation with a customer where we screwed something up. Like, this is how it goes. This is how we learn. This is how we grow. So I hope that's helpful. Again, these are all things we all know. There's nothing revolutionary here, nothing I came up with, but we tend to overcomplicate things, and some of these things that can really hold us up aren't that complicated. So anyhow, don't forget, go to joinbusinesstips.com to see all the benefits included in my new group called Business Tips. If you like this podcast, you would definitely like the group. Great group of folks that are there. We have fantastic conversations. We meet twice a month on a recorded Zoom call. People ask questions about how to improve their business, their growth, their team, their processes, their profitability, all that kind of stuff. Less than $100 a month, no contracts, no commitment. Go to joinbusinesstips.com, see what it's all about. Anyhow, if you find the information I share helpful, please share this podcast with a friend or colleague you think could benefit. Also, I haven't asked for this in a while. If you haven't given us a rating review yet, I'd love for you to do that. That'd be very helpful. That's how this podcast algorithm-y stuff works, is ratings, reviews, shares, downloads. Like, that's the thing. So things you can do is share, rate, review. If you can do those three things, and if you have already, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And that's it for this week. I'll talk to you all next week.